success. So a helpless response, it wouldn't necessarily mean that it's a failure per se, but it could be also related to attributional. When we talk about the person who show mastery kind of response, it wasn't always about brilliance, but it was a kind of a strategic, persistent coping strategies. So over the time, Dweck realized that, Carol Dweck realized that it stemmed from this pattern. It stems from the implicit self-theories, and some believe that ability is fixed and named as entity theory, and others believe it can be expanded, which is the incremental theory. And as it entered the classroom studies in the year 2000, the language evolved, and many of us recognize this as a fixed as well as a growth mindset. So the framing gives us a very strong foundation to ask back if actually students' mindset guide how they respond. So what about teachers? How might our own belief as well as teachers guide how we interpret our students? So expanding recent direction by Yeager and Dweck herself, in which published a paper in 2020, offers a valuable insight that complement the need for us to broaden this growth mindset framework in special education setting. So the work highlighted the mindset effect are not just uniform, but it varies significantly depending on the student context and the opportunity to actually act on this mindset belief. So they call this perspective mindset multiply or by context framework. Okay, so this framework aligned with this neurodiverse classroom reality. So where behavior as well as emotional challenges always influence the learning alongside the cognitive factors. So the paper, they recognize that the interventions so far have mixed findings. That's not always effective. So underscoring is not a straightforward study. It's very complex, changing teachers' belief and practices about the student. So it also supports that the need for exploring other belief domains. Like in this case, I'm sharing the cognitive, behavioral, as well as emotional. So the author suggested that if mindset function as a meaning system, then its logic could extend naturally into the inclusion. So because inclusion too begins with meaning, the meaning that teachers actually assign to differences and also well as to the capabilities. And Thomas Armstrong in 2012 he challenged us with this neurodiversity term, seeing it as a natural expression of human difference. So neurodiversity is the idea that neurological differences like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and others, they are seen as a natural variation of human genome rather than pathology for us to think of how to cure it. So it's not a deficit that we are supposed to be more concerned of how to fix it. So Thomas Armstrong promotes what he called the strength-based teaching with the view of this moral as well as the social dimension. And with Lenny Floren in 2015, when she introduced and highlighted the theme of inclusive pedagogy, she begins to invite teachers to reimagine, teachers, researchers to reimagine what participation can look like. So in education, this echo what Lenny Floren later described as the belief practice nexus, the idea that what the teachers assume about the learners' capability shape what they actually do in the classroom. So far, this mindset explored mostly about the learner's perspective, how students themselves think about their potential. But inclusive education, particularly for the neurodiverse learners, I think we need to start flipping this lens. So here, Florence emphasized that through inclusive pedagogy is not just a set of strategies, but it is actually a stance. So we also see quite a number of research consistently show that students with special education needs outcomes are disproportionately shaped by the teacher's perception and the mediation. So while typical learners in the classroom may be able to self-regulate their own thought and their own mindset, neurodiverse learners, on the other hand, will typically more heavily depend on their teachers for scaffolding, for interpretation, and like for the feedback of their learning. So in this classroom, it's very important for the teachers to believe that they don't just influence the instruction, but actually help us to understand how they define opportunity to learn. So bringing these three lines of thinking, I propose a question and asking myself, so how do teachers believe in terms of cognitive behavior as well as emotional could actually shape teacher efficacy in the action they choose to do in the teaching and the aspiration when it comes to neurodiverse classroom. So the meaning shift, why teachers believe matters. So here, although Dweck explored a lot of this motivational pattern in learners, we can also apply this same principle to teachers. So as educators, especially working with the neurodiverse learners who also interpret success and failures of their own student and their own mindset. So this also carry the same idea of this attributional as well as the goal oriented filter. In the student model, the helplessness limits the self-agency to change. In the teacher model, the helplessness limits the relational agency. So in other words, the belief that the teacher can influence the growth of the student. So this is very important, especially looking at from the relational agency point of view. So when teachers internalize a sense of helplessness towards the student behavior or the emotional challenges, they unconsciously withdraw from the very relational process itself. So which we will be hoping that it could enable change. And this form of learned helplessness in teaching could also erode not only the instruction, the confidence, but also the teacher's own moral as well as their own emotional agency. So this sense of relationship can actually transform learning in inclusive as well as in education, special education context. This is very critical to highlight because the teachers believe could shift from I can reach the student in terms of seeing a mastery kind of direction to this is something beyond my control. So the potential for core regulation and emotional attunement could diminish. And this is what Florence described this as the difference between the teaching to difference and the teaching for inclusion. This relational agency actually has been shown to bridge between the belief and the practice. So that's why sometimes there's a gap that exists, a teacher who continue to believe but still feel that they are lacking and they're not competent to practice or to exercise or show any efficacy in thinking that they can make a change, they can inform changes in the students' learning. So when teachers feel hopeful, they could engage persistently and adaptively, but when they adopt this helplessness, they could disengage emotionally. So this is very salient for special education teachers. Now, looking at the interpretive process inside the loop, the cognitive domain is about, often we begin with the cognitive domain because teachers are actually trained to read competence very well through academic output. So here it shows that early judgment about the ability already kind of steer expectation and feedback and how competent a student appear from academic output. And this early expectation can become a self-fulfilling prophecies. In the lens of the behavioral domain, it's about how teachers interpret what they see. So students' restlessness or the withdrawal might actually be read as laziness or defiance, but in fact, it could actually express issue in regulation or kind of an anxiety expression. So this reminds us that this attribution determines what the teacher will persist or they would choose to disengage. So there are also studies that which infer the causes for this student behavior, the label of behavior under lazy, under the resistant or struggling. This could actually those inferences could shape the kind of the persistent as well as the feedback. When we talk about emotional domain, how teachers perceive and respond to students' feeling, this is about the teachers' own empathy and the regulation. So here they found that emotionally attuned teachers create more inclusive climates. Those under pressure are more likely to misread students' affect. So there's also a study which found that emotionally attuned teachers interpret frustration could be as a way of communicating, not defiance. So this also leads to more supportive kind of responses. And understanding, so empirically, we can already trace the consistent pathway of this, the cognitive, the behavioral, as well as emotional, which could inform action. So understanding the loops will actually allow us to map the possibility of seeing it as a parallel. I term it as a parallel at this time, belief domain, the use of cognitive behavior and emotional layers. To inform teachers' professional mindset in a neurodiverse classroom. So, and we also hope that through this domain, it will help us to see why maybe some students can elicit such different responses across the classroom, not because of the student's trait, but because of how the teacher believe in terms of their ecology and how they filter what they see. Emotion and behavioral lens. So here are just a few of listed study, but there are actually more. The list can go on and on. So with Tamir and his colleagues in 2007 found that beliefs about whether emotion are controllable or malleable is an expansion study of Dweck herself, and also Dweck and other researcher also found it continued to confirm that the fixed trait are over the unchangeable or with the changeable kind of state of behavior. And Brunette and other researchers found that beliefs about whether self-control, motivation, and habits can be improved. And another study which look at emotion mindset. So here implication for emotion regulation and well-being. What they found that they consider emotion as a fixed or malleable. Those terms as emotion mindset was actually used and impact their ability to regulate emotion and the overall well-being. And again, Jaeger and Dweck herself with other colleagues also found that in another study in 2011, they found that it demonstrated that when people believe behavior can change, it can conduct improvements, suggesting that the teacher's belief, which is the interest of this study, about behavioral malleability can reduce exclusionary discipline. So what is all study trying to say that there's a common thread in that the belief is flexible, where it is termed as malleability here, whether of emotion, whether of self-regulation, ability, or behavior disposition. So this belief shapes motivation. Studies have shown across this list have shown to shape motivation, to improve resilience and the willingness to engage in this self-improvement effort and task. And they also extend through the traditional intelligent focus growth mindset into a much broader domain of psychological functioning. And understanding this parallel mindset offer richer insight into human agency, feeling empowered to change, and also self-regulation as well as adaptive behavior. So this is just a bit of the orientations of the practical phases of teachers' implicit theory. I bring to your attention here to let you know, as well to inform the instrument that I used, that I adapted from Coral Dweck herself. So there are 8 questions. So in the cognitive domain, when it all started looking at the implicit theory, the question around can intelligence grow? within that team. So this shapes how teachers interpret learning potential. So it could be in the spectrum of feeling helpless, intelligence is innate, or mastery, ability developed through strategy. So the focus is then more on the capability for change, scaffolding from the teachers on support, and could expand learning. In the domain of behavior, it's very similar to the items of Coral Dweck herself. I rephrased it, but focus on the behavior. So can behavior change? So here it shapes how teachers interpret the effort or the defiance. So a helpless kind of interpretation would show that students' habit and motivation are stable. So misbehavior could be a character flaw, could be something that is the student's own trait, or this then rely on the kind of a control or punishment. But at the mastery point of view, conduct and self-control are improvable. So they can see behavior as a skill gap, which uses coaching, modeling, and reflection. So when we talk about emotional, it's focused more on around the emotion, the perception of the emotion of the student themselves. So whether it can be regulated, whether it can be taught, whether it can change. So the shapes here show how teachers interpret or distrust disengagement. In the helpless point of view, emotion can be changed. So it suppresses or avoids the feeling, interpret distress as well as disruption. By the mastery point of view, emotion can be taught and regulated. So the possibility of seeing it as co-regulation exercises, validation of the feeling, and build emotional literacy and trust. But with time, can build confidence in terms of teacher efficacy. A little bit about the study context and the design. So I collected the self-report data from special education teachers in Brunei to see whether this growth mindset relate to efficacy for inclusive practice, considering the behavior as well as the emotional belief domains as the mediator. Now, this is a very small study, so a cross-sectional quantitative study using a self-report questionnaire. I only managed to get 46, but then it's fine. This is a small exploratory data set to test for the parallel belief domain. I don't call it model yet. It's still something at the feasibility stage. So analysis here, I did mediation process model 4 using the SPSS to test for the path for the growth mindset with mediation through the behavior and emotional belief to the direct effect of teacher efficacy. And the model fit only can explain by 14.5%. Now, the instrument, just to share a bit, what did I use beside their demographic and their background info. The cognitive belief was used from the Dweck original 8 items, which focus with others focused version. So this is in the sense the teachers are actually rating their perception of the cognitive belief of the students. So items like the intelligence is something that cannot be changed very much. When I look into the behavior belief as well as emotional belief, I adapted the same 8 question. I adapted and change. I change and see instead of intelligent, I change that to behavior. When for emotional belief, I change that to emotion. But it stays true still with the framework of Dweck mindset of the other focus version. The teacher efficacy in inclusive practice is from the Sharma 2012. So this is looking into different factors of the efficacy in inclusive, the efficacy in management, and so on. So I did a parallel mediation through this process study, and here this was my my conceptual framework. So as you can see, there's a direct effect assessing the teacher's mindset of student cognitive to the teacher efficacy inclusive practice, and then I introduced the two mediator, which is the student's behavior as well as the student emotion. But these findings, I would like to heads up for everyone to be used as caution when I'm also sharing this, because of the small sample size, and maybe the power might also be affected in when the task when the paramediation was run. But they show some hidden potential. So the preliminary findings, how teachers' implicit theories operate in practice. So here, to show whether the growth mindset shaped their behavior through their behavior and emotional belief domain. So here, both behavior and emotional domain did not significantly predict the efficacy. However, there is a teacher with stronger growth mindset was significantly more likely to endorse a positive belief about the student behavior and emotional capacity. So we can see that the effect from the teacher mindset to the behavior as well as teacher mindset to emotional mindset is significant. They show that the higher the cognitive mindset, the more teacher also believe that the behavior can change, showing a more positive growth mindset for behavior and positive mindset for emotion. However, this domain belief is not significant to predict the teacher efficacy at this stage, right? So behavior belief to the teacher efficacy shows a slightly negative trend, suggesting that teacher may actually initially see that the behavior is very hard to change when it comes to trying to act on the behavior. And in terms of emotional belief, there is a positive trend. So supporting with the view that emotional growth could be something that is closely assigned to responsive to giving a continuous support and with time. But because of this trend that actually moved in the opposite direction, where the trend, while it's still not significant, but the trend shows that it's negative from behavior mindset to teacher efficacy and positive from emotion mindset to teacher efficacy, though it did not find any mediation. The direction, not the strength, the direction is conceptually kind of, to some extent, is supported in the teacher domain specific belief, which may represent a potential pathway through which growth mindset can influence efficacy. Now, this symmetry where there's a negative and there's also a positive mindset at the same time, seeing behavior as less, in this case, malleable, but emotion as something that is teachable, remains theoretically meaningful even with no significant finding, because this highlights that there might be a need for future study, hopefully with a bigger scale, focus more on the refinement as well as the scale development. So growth mindset here, beyond the cognition, here I would like to highlight that we've seen a positive behavior belief as well as the emotional belief. So data clearly shows that the pathway for the teacher mindset to these two mediators were very strong and were statistically significant. So this tells us that teacher general mindset alone, their belief that the student can grow, actually travels across this domain, this behavior as well as this emotional domain. So it shapes not only how teachers sees the student's ability, but to also learn that how they perceive the capacity to regulate behavior and manage. And this mindset as motivational meaning system, the framework that was introduced by Dweck herself, influence how we interpret challenges, effort, as well as a potential. So this echo very much about the recent work of this specific implicit theories to suggest that people do hold multiple parallel belief about growth. It's not just one mindset, but there are several segmented domains that they continue to interact and connect. So here the form of an inclusive education perspective in this sense, it argues that the teacher professional reasoning encompasses all aspects of their learners, not only cognitive, but also behavioral as well as the affective side. So this finding gives strong empirical support to the idea that these belief domains, which operates in which inform the teachers interpret and continue to respond across dimension. So in practice, that both these beliefs, behavior, and emotional mindset can help to strengthen the teacher's inclusive confidence. When we talk about the behavioral growth belief to the efficacy of the teachers on efficacy in managing this behavior. So it wasn't significant, okay, but the trend's also negative. Now, although there was a strong growth mindset earlier, which believed that the student behavior could change, this belief was negatively related to the sense of the self-efficacy for a change to happen. So in other words, the more teacher believe behavior could change, the less confident. The direction says that it's less confident they felt that the ability that this could happen. So this may sound paradoxical because, but it also mirrors what we see in a neurodiverse classroom. So attributional theory here could explain teacher often attribute behavior difficulties to external, something, sometimes it's also stable causes such as home circumstances, the disability or the neurological factors itself. So even if they believe that change is possible, which was significant, they might feel that it lies outside of their direct control. And there's also this idea of empathetic strain. We describe where teachers care, they do show care, deep care about the students and feel emotionally, but at the same time, they feel emotionally exhausted when progress is very slow. And also that caring sometimes can turn into frustration or self-blame when change is very slow. So studies also show that the possibility of this burnout among teachers working with the neurodiverse is true. It happens. And also because of these large classes, for example, limited aids and also the kind of the rigid policy around the structure in school and the kind of support they get. So the teachers could feel the lack of agency for change. And so what begins initially with the optimistic belief that this behavior can change can sometimes backfire. And it shifts from feeling optimism to now to self-blame, which doesn't come easily. So this shows us that the behavioral growth is not enough. Okay, teachers need systematic as well as emotional support to help to sustain this belief in practice. When we talk about this emotional growth pathway to teacher efficacy, again, it was not significant, but the direction was positive. So this is consistent with the social emotional learning framework that position emotional development as something that is relational and as well as responsive. So teachers may find emotional growth more tangible, which may be aligned with their own interpersonal and their intrapersonal values, such as empathy and those who can co-regulate with the student and can be a classroom climate building. So that's linking the belief and practice more naturally occurring in the classroom. So overall, this finding suggests that, well, teachers growth mindset generalized to behavior as well as emotion domain, the translation into efficacy is also context sensitive. This was what Floren has highlighted in the paper. So here, behavioral growth belief, though theoretically positive, but they may currently coexist with structural or emotional barriers that could actually suppress their practical impact and hence a negative efficacy among the teachers. So there is a future work with more involvement investigating how this professional learning, how the peer collaboration in the school as well as in the broader school whole school system can actually bridge this gap, helping teachers not only to believe in the behavior change, but also to feel empowered to achieve this. So the question is, my study seems to indicate for the population of teachers who responded to this survey, seems to signal this relational helplessness feeling or expression. So in other words, this reveals a form of teachers' compassion remains high all the time, but their sense of impact is uneven across the domain. So it is not to say that they reject inclusion, okay, but I feel like it's rather that they caught between the belief and the constraint, because there's a lot of constraint here in terms of resources, in terms of manpower, and other policy level when we talk about inclusive education currently in Brunei context. So even though there's no a mediation that was significant, it wasn't significant, it reveals something deeply, I feel like it's really deeply human in this data. So the teachers in the study continue to believe that students can grow. This could also be something contextual. This could also be because something religion that support the kind of the values or mindset. But then the total effect from this mindset to the efficacy is something different. But when we unpack the belief of this behavior and emotional domain, we see that, or through my finding, that the story we show that it splits. So for behavior, it tends to be negative. Teacher who strongly believe behavior can change report lower efficacy, and this likely reflect more of a frustration rather than pessimism, because they initially are very optimistic about the change in behavior. And also when in contrast to the emotional growth belief, which shows a positive trend. So teachers seem to find relational hope for empathy and co-regulation, but they still believe that they continue to believe that they can influence the students' emotional world, even though sometimes the behavior feels very hard, far-fetched to reach. And so with this relational helplessness, we see that a possibility that they hold multiple, sometimes also conflicting kind of mindset that occurs simultaneously. So they are not fixed-minded. They could be overstretched believers. All right. So trying to reconcile compassion with the constraint that they currently have in school and with the resources and with the support in general. So in special education setting, teachers frequently interpret students' emotion and as towards the attributional framework, asking why is this happening. So here, the overall, the differences in the perception is particularly salient in special education when we are confronted with persistent behavioral challenges. So this is something which is, I think it's high time that we look into other beliefs that can inform intervention or potential for support in school. So there are several implications that I foresee in the context of the study, which I hope maybe I can do a workshop for the teachers in Brunei here in the future. I see the possibility of looking into encouraging teachers to see the belief mapping session so that they can visualize personal confidence across the domain. So it needs to surface and reconcile that belief resonance is actually taking place, and the implication of that continuing with the belief will have a detrimental effect on the student and themselves and the well-being of the teacher, because we want teachers to feel empowered. And rebuilding behavioral efficacy through structural support is something which we must continue to work on, and also provide a lot of positive behavior support. And also this restorative practice is also very popular in the Western, something which we can look into the model. And then the sustaining emotional growth belief through this relational practice. It's important, I think, to help teachers to recognize the emotional teaching. Now, the emotional teaching is something that is legitimate, and it is a professional skill that everybody must feel equipped and feel empowered to use it. Use mentoring and narrative reflection. So teachers see mindset not as just as a slogan or the belief, but part of their moral and professional identity. So in this case, this can, in our culture, we can also introduce this together with the value, with the religious practices, since majority of our teachers are also Muslims. And leadership must legitimize time and space and recognize that emotional and behavioral reflection, not only academic outcomes. So this is something which we hope to be acknowledged more in the future, because it has a lot of implication in terms of the school-wide nation support. So these are my findings, but I want to also mention the limitation, because the findings are not significant, but then the pattern are kind of consistent, yet might not be proven, because that I don't call it the behavioral, the framework for the behavioral mindset as well as the emotional mindset need to be tested, need to be validated, and also because of the small sample signal for a replication with bigger studies. And our future research, I hope that it could refine behavioral mindset scale as well as the emotional scale to examine also maybe context moderators, such as other possible variables like the staff support, the policy level, mindset around this, policy mindset around this, structural support in school. So I feel this study has opened up my eyes in terms of the current struggles that I feel the teachers are experiencing. And I hope my share today have ignite, maybe have inspired those who could could resonate with what I'm sharing. That's all from me, Professor Devi. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was great, Siti. It was really lovely to hear about your work, and great to hear about the importance of teachers. I think is really, really crucial. The teacher attitudes and how we're training and supporting our teachers, and the significant impact they have on the students themselves, and their attitudes that they bring towards inclusive practices. I was wondering just before, while anybody's thinking of questions, or if people want to type anything in the chat, please feel free for asking questions. Can you say anything a little bit about the structure of education in Brunei in terms of how many neurodivergent pupils, sort of what proportion would tend to be in sort of mainstream provision with neurotypical peers versus those separate in a separate SEN style provision?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. It's important for me to give a bit of the context as well, so maybe you can infer the meaning of the finding as well. Special education in Brunei, we are continuing promoting this inclusivity, but we are still far from, I think, the Western model. We have shown a lot of success in integrating inclusive. We depend a lot of para-professional as well. So in terms of the manpower, the resources. It's something which the ministry is working as well with the university. So we are continuing training the teachers. So that is in terms of the manpower and the resources. So in terms of the students' placement in school, we do have what they call this model inclusive school. They call it MIS, model inclusive school. I think there's around 13 of them in Brunei currently, in primary as well as in secondary. So not the whole school would have this MIS. So it's the students are recognized by these priority levels. Priority level 1, 2, and 3 are considered kind of like mild, and they can actually join the mainstream students in the classroom. But anything above 4 and 5, then they will be kind of studying in their own building. With this MIS building is actually is a standalone beside the main school, so it's not even fully integrated itself. Yeah, so there are challenges because the growing number of students. But quite recently they introduced this what we call the Center of Excellence. There's 2 now, one in Temburong and one in, I think, in Bandar. So, but the Center of Excellence is said to be a place where they group a very common challenges or diagnosis. So, like a group of very difficult to enter the mainstream or even to join the para-vocational strand. So they will be placed in this, they call COE center. So the COE center is another upgraded model or setting of this MIS, the model inclusive. And at the moment, there's a lot of resources, there's a lot of advances in terms of providing a pre-vocational student for those who could not go out for placement. So a lot of sheltered kind of placement is happening in the Center of Excellence, because this is a group of students who cannot independently go outside. So, and in terms of the policy, this is something which we work closely with the Ministry of Education. We continue as a teacher training to train teachers, but the number varies from time to time. And currently, we are the teachers who are being trained at the moment. They are originally quite a lot of them are in school for many years, so they are actually the relief teachers. They have various background, no background in special education. They've been in the school system for a number of years. So, and then quite recently, for the past 3 years, government has been very active in sending them for upskilling. So that's what we are currently doing at the moment. So the provision is there in terms of the curriculum. They introduced a new curriculum. So the focus of numeracy and literacy is still very prominent in the primary education, and they also continue with pre-vocational, pro-vocational curriculum, functioning skills in the secondary, and throughout the years they continue to introduce this. This recently they introduced this Islamic religious component into the curriculum. So that's something new, actually. Yeah. So that's the overall of what inclusive looks like in a snapshot.
That's great. Thank you. There's lots of conversations in the UK at the moment recently about what inclusion means, and I think that we can kind of start to define it from our own systems that we are in. But of course, there's huge global differences in approach, and of course, I'm guessing there might. Do you think there would be extreme cultural differences if we did the same study with a group of similar teachers in similar provision elsewhere in the world, in the UK, etc.?
very interesting, because when I was thinking about what is this finding really tells me about, so I was thinking, could there be anything, any cultural sound that could actually inform my own finding? In this scale, it's very small at the moment. It's only 46. I recognize that the finding of this negative trends of behavior to self-efficacy, and also the positive trends of this emotional to self-efficacy, could reflect something cultural as well. I don't want to call we as the collectivists anymore, because I think we don't represent, I think we not many represent collectivist term. Maybe back 20 years, yes, majority of them. And in terms of the culture, how it has been exercised, that we recognize the importance of emotion and this relational agency, and the value that is attached to the culture, because we prioritize this harmony against any other dispute. So the respect of the elder, the respect of thinking before we speak. So there's a lot of emotional regulation. There's a lot of hopes as well. Maybe as well because of the religious aspect that carries in the values, that regardless that whatever the difficulty, we still continue to believe. We still continue to have that hope. In terms of the behavior trend, why it might sound signal a negative trend, I foresee a possibility in terms of the culture, in this culture, because the behavior, something which could be, which could signal, and which we recognize could be something that is recognized going against the norm, so that's something that is not to be negotiated. It could be something that is fixed. So it's something that they believe that, okay, I have optimistic about the change in the behavior, but I don't think I can tolerate that kind of behavior. Yeah, so it could be different, when we try to translate the same finding in other culture.
Yeah. And do you think, sorry, I'm asking all the questions and nobody's got their hand up, but I'm more than happy just to ask you all the questions and hog the question session. Do you think that societal views around neurodiversity have changed at all recently in the last sort of decade in Brunei, or in terms of attitudes towards inclusion or neurodiversity more broadly, in terms of those cultural elements outside of education, but which might be brought into an educational setting?
Yep, a very important question. Yes, it has evolved in terms of the awareness. There's a lot of campaign and there's a lot of acceptance, but there's definitely more work in terms of acknowledging these people, especially the neurodiverse students, when they exit school. Because at the moment, we have been, I think that there is a negotiation at the moment that the current system in education would means that the student leaving school will just have this certification of participation. So there were no real kind of recognized competency, skill reflection in the skills, in the certificate. So there's definitely a gap in terms of the transition, and the number is also kind of concerning in terms of those students exiting school getting jobs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have seen that there's a lot of promising, if there's a serious take at the policy level to actually put, like what we've seen in other countries, that support these people in terms of making it compulsory in terms of the employer contract to recruit, a number of students with this neurodiverse background to be employed. So I think there's work. There's definitely work. We hope that the policy will take action through this shared that knowledge. There's a lot of things that has changed. We have a lot of a symposium open to public, and a lot of activities as well, which involve entrepreneur for the students to showcase their skills. That was done recently in a very big mall, so all school participated. So there was a singing competition, there was also cooking competition and crafting, so that brought a lot of fun for the public, and we really enjoyed that kind of activity. So there's a lot of things that has changed now. We hope to see more in the future. Yeah.
That's great. I'm going to ask one last question, sorry. With sort of increases in awareness and maybe potentially more sort of acceptance within society, have you seen, do you think, changes in diagnosis rates? So are more people, and we know that one of the reasons lots of people didn't go for diagnoses are related to stigma, etc. Do you see less stigma associated with a diagnosis at all, or are we still sort of evolving through that journey, do you think?
I've been reading quite a lot, and this actually kind of stuck with the way I see things. And the label itself, the stigma around it itself. There's this beliefs where the children of this neurodiverse, in the cultural sense, they are seen as children of gods. That label, while it's bringing hope for the parents, but I also feel like it diminishes the aspiration for the kids, when they enter school. So there's a lot of I did a quick review with the ministry, and I asked them, when parents send their kids to school, how much involvement are the parents in terms of some parents are very active, but some parents because their only one purpose is for the child to know how to look after themselves. So that's the level of aspiration that they have once they exit school. So there's nothing that go beyond in terms of capability in the workplace or in furthering studies. So this is something which we definitely need to look very closely in this mindset at the very foundation level. While the label of, we call it in Malay, anak syurga. So it's the child of heaven. Sorry, the child of heaven. Sorry, I was saying the child of God. Sorry, yeah, I meant child of heaven. Okay, please extract back. Withdraw that term. So the child of heaven is something that people find safe around that terms, especially for parents. So when they feel and when they feel that it's something helpless, the changes is impossible, so they feel like this is something which already they are destined, that they already been destined, that they are the chosen parents. They are the chosen parents, so they're not going to force it. It's more of accepting. So that kind of mindset, I think, is very important to look into. Yes.
I love that. I love that it's seen as a positive mindset in that sense as well. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Siti. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed just chatting to you about the issues, but also hearing about the research that you've been doing as well. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who has joined us online. I think we had about 47 people for the talk, which is absolutely fantastic. We've got another speaker in the middle of November, and we'll send out details for that nearer the time. But thank you so much to today's speaker and to everybody who has joined us.
Professor Ribi, can I make one final announcement?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Anyone interested to collaborate with research, please contact me. I'm very happy to do cross-cultural studies. That's all from me. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Perfect. Thank you.
See you again next time. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.